First and foremost, I would like to welcome everybody to the first Trends meeting of 2024. Yeah, that can get a round of applause. I'd like to do a couple introductions here. So my name is Jason Schifrin. I'm the 2024 Trends Vice Chair. Of course, this man needs no introduction, but the chair is Steve Hawks. Our director liaison is Noah Herrera, and our staff liaison is Adeline Lint. Do we have any board members in the house? I know we have the wonderful Miss Mary Perry, our LVR 2024 president. Any other board members, if you would please stand for just a quick moment. Great. All right, perfect. Thank you, everybody. Can I have an approval of minutes for the previous meeting that took place on October 10th, 2023? Do I hear a second? All right, perfect. I got a few seconds there, so that's nice. All right, today our lunch sponsor is Landmark Title. We have Mike England from Landmark Title here. He brought us our lunch. I'm gonna give him here a few minutes over here to speak, and then we'll get started with the panel.
Hi, Mike England, Landmark Title. I'm also the #1 customer today for Capriotti's. So hopefully you enjoy the sandwiches. A couple things that Landmark is known for here in Las Vegas. We're one of the fastest growing title companies over the last couple years. We've added a lot of familiar escrow officers that a lot of you guys have been able to work with over the years, so that's been exciting. We also specialize in title joint ventures and partnerships with real estate agents. So thank you for having me and letting me sponsor today.
Thank you, Mike. So that's Mike England with Landmark Title, everybody. So all right, let's get started with why you all came here today. So we have the Crystal Ball 2024 panel. Last year's, if you were here, Steve got everything 100% correct. So let's see what's in store for us in 2024. So on our panel today is going to be Cameron Belt. He is with RCG Economics. Oh, when I call you guys, if you wouldn't mind just coming over here. We've got the seats over here. So this is Cameron Belt with RCG Economics. We also have Mike Sweeney with Train and Tour. This guy is a new home guru. He will teach you how to sell a new home and then take you on a tour to see all of them. And last but certainly not least, we have Mike Rowland, CEO of the Rowland team at Platinum Real Estate Professionals. And then, of course, the panel wouldn't be complete without your chair, Steve Hawks.
Thanks, Jason.
Of course.
So glad everybody could make it, and I didn't get it 100% right. Everybody that was on the panel last year got 100% right. It's very easy these days when we live in a centrally planned economy. So ever since 2020, when all the craziness happened, they've been telling us what's going to happen, and it's pretty easy to predict. I don't know if one of the best ones was when me and Captain Noah jumped out of that trash can in 2021 and said, buy everything. Why? Because they're going to print all that money, and they said they're going to print all that money, and we said that everything's going to go up about 25% because they're going to increase the money supply by 25%. Well, since then, it's been even more than that, correct? So reverse crash. This is the first reverse crash we've had in over 40 years. And what is a reverse crash? Well, we were talking about it at the last meeting in October, November, and you saw a lot of people on social media in December telling all the buyers, buy now, don't wait, because prices are going to go up as soon as rates drop a little bit, and the reverse crash is going to happen. And what that is when you keep on printing, when you go back to printing money, dropping rates, what does that do? That increases demand, right? So you damn well better have built and made enough supply of goods and services, because if you don't have enough goods and services, a supply of goods and services, when that new cycle comes, what happens? We're seeing it right now. Prices skyrocket. And today, they're all shocked about the inflation numbers that happened today, and you saw the rates pop up today, but that will be short term as we'll discuss. One of the main drivers of inflation, which was, I think they said today was like 60% of the numbers today of why the inflation skyrocketed was because of what? Let's take a wild guess. Shelter, right? And why has it gone up so much? Well, look how much house prices have gone up, and the cost of living has gone up since the rates have just gone down a little bit. Back in November, we said, the following December that the mortgage rates would probably be around somewhere close to 4.9% because of what was going on. And then, people thought that was crazy because at the time the rates were 8%. But just a few weeks later, we saw mortgage rates drop to the sixes, right? 6.8, 6.7. Some people got 6.5. And the builders, 4.9, 3.9, Mikey. How are we supposed to compete with that? So as you see, why did the rates drop? Well, if you know what's going on at macroeconomic level, you know that the main reason why the 10-year dropped was because of what is going on in China. Complete chaos and collapsing going on in China. So all that money comes in, buys the T-bill, and drops it down. The main reason why the T-bill is down is not because of what the Fed says, but because people are buying the bonds, bringing down the yield. And a lot of money was coming out of China. If we have time to talk about that, one of the biggest impacts on the real estate market right now is what's going on in China. So the Fed, if you remember, and we'll get this real quick, if anyone wants to know what March 2024 is going to be like, all you got to do is flip the pages back 24 months, and you will see March of 2022. So March 2024 is going to be exactly the same as 2022. We're going to see a complete frenzy. We're going to see prices at the higher levels than March of 2024 or 2022. And remember what the Fed said. This just shows how bad they get it, how wrong they always are. Do you remember in March of 2022, the Fed raised rates? Remember, Powell said, well, we're going to raise rates. It's going to increase inventory. And that's going to have more, for the younger buyers, it's going to give them more of a variety to buy homes. And for the last 100 years, that works, right? When you raise rates, people can't afford it. They sell their houses to pay off their debt, and the cycle starts over again. Well, we saw that for about 8 months. People say the prices haven't gone down. Well, go look at the house price sales between June of 2022 and December of 2022. Those houses were down. A lot of those sales during that time were down anywhere from 10 to 20%, depending on what period you're actually looking at. Now, year over year, it didn't happen, the drops, because what happened in November, December? Remember November, December of 2022? There was like 8 to 10,000, was it 22 or 23? There was 8 to 10,000, yeah, it was 22. 22, there was 8 to 10,000 houses on the market, right? And last crystal ball, Mike was here, we were all telling everybody, hey, there's gonna be a huge shortage, you better start looking at new. Everybody thought we were crazy. Well, why did we know that? We don't have this magical crystal ball, right? That's BS. What we have is the federal agencies telling us they're gonna do what? Forbearances, right? So in the forbearances, the last time we got the numbers was 50,000 in Clark County, right? It was 49,000 in Clark County. So it's probably gone up more than there. Well, what did that do? That took a lot of houses off the market, but more importantly, it took future houses from going on the market like they did in the past. Because in the past, if somebody had too much debt or too high credit cards, they would sell their house, pay it off, and start over again and go buy another house. Well, that doesn't happen anymore, because as soon as somebody gets a credit card default or they go behind on their mortgage, what happens? They get more calls from the lender than an expired homeowner gets from a realtor, okay? As soon as that late happens, boom, they're bombarded with the option to do a forbearance. And so the forbearances, we've talked about that before, 6 to 18 months, no payment, then it goes on. And since then, VA has added that not only they do the forbearances, they will no longer foreclose. So there's going to be no VA foreclosures, and they're just following what basically FHA and the conventional is doing. So we're not going to see any VA foreclosures probably for at least two years, because they extended it to May, but we know that's going to keep on getting extended. Does anyone know why they did that? Because there was so many forbearances They didn't want all those forbearances coming due and then people panicking. So they said, don't worry, no foreclosure is going to happen. We'll worry about the forbearances, and that buys 2 years. But at the same time, what does that do? That changes all of history on how real estate works with inventory, right? So that's less inventories coming on the market. Now you add that to all the other less inventory. What do we have? Low inventory, higher prices. And this is, if you're going to be in this kind of economy, the best thing to do in this kind of economy is sell. If you're going to sell, what's the best thing to sell right now? Real estate, stocks, bonds, or precious metals, and especially new homes. So, and what the government has done now with all these policies, with the Fed and the forbearances, and especially what's going on in commercial, everybody should do that, do the research on what's going on in the commercial. It's big. It's going to impact us, not as much as China and California, but it's going to have a huge impact on the economy because the small banks are in deep trouble right now because of the commercial, the multifamily, all that stuff is a disaster right now for them. And the only way to fix it, there's only one way, right? Well, there's two ways. They print more money and bail them out, but that's a lot of money. They probably can't do that. So what they're going to have to do is drop rates. So and we're going to see a sudden drop in rates. You know, when you hear people say, oh, the Fed says it's going to be they're going to drop rates 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. That's irrelevant. It doesn't matter how many times they're going to do it. All that matters is how much they do when they do it. Because if anybody remembers in 2008, they don't have to wait for a time to drop interest rates. They can have an emergency meeting and drop them like that. 2008, you know, sometimes they dropped to 1 or 2 points at one meeting. That can happen too, and that's probably going to happen even if inflation is a little out of control. It's probably still going to happen in order to save the small banks that have all these commercial properties on their books. The biggest factors for Vegas real estate right now, and we'll touch on this too, this really impacts our sphere of influence that is local. So if your sphere of influence is local, this is a big challenge for SLI, your sphere of influence that is local. And Mike's going to talk about that later on how he did a video about 18 months ago and predicted exactly what's going to happen with the sphere of influence and how you need to adapt quickly to keep your transactions going if you relied on your local sphere of influence. You have the 2 largest economies in the world right now that are collapsing, okay? You got China, who's the 2nd largest economy that is collapsing. When we say collapsing, we're not talking anarchy. We're just talking major economic downturn. And if we have time, we'll go into some details. But how that impacts us real quickly is China, it depends on what China does. If China lets these things fall and deflate, then everything in the US will get less, right? But, and this is their track record, if they decide to create another stimulus, and they got a big stimulus doing right now, what's that going to do to the US and assets in the US? It's going to make them go up because that's extra money. It doesn't matter how many people move to Las Vegas on the house prices. That doesn't impact it, right? What impacts the most of house prices in Las Vegas now, and it wasn't like this, you know, when I first started, even 10 years ago, before 2010, it wasn't like this. After 2010, this is what happened. It's how much money is coming to a location that matters, not how many people, how much money is coming. So if you have a lot of money coming buying assets, what's going to happen? Those assets are going to go up. So we can almost, with about a 90% accuracy, say that real estate in Vegas is going to continue to go up, especially if the Fed drops rates and China does a stimulus. That's a double whammy because when China prints money, what do? They come in, they buy assets all over the world, especially farmland and commercial buildings and stuff. And as we might figure out, they've probably been buying a lot of local real estate via hedge funds, like residential houses. But now we're starting to find out that, you know what? A lot of these buyers could have been buyers from China doing LLCs, the China government. And then the second part is the second factor, I like to call it the 3 C's, China, California, and commercial. Those are the biggest impacts it's going to have on residential real estate. And right now, anybody know that game kids play, like the floor is lava, and you have some safety areas? Okay? Well, the whole economy is lava right now, And the safety areas, the rocks that you can go on, are stocks, crypto, and residential real estate, right? That's where everybody's hopping right now. And so that's what you got to keep in mind on why so much money is coming here. And when you see all these headlines that's going on in commercial and all that, the more bad news you hear economically is the better news. Well, it depends on who you're talking to, but the better news more as far as prices going up. So if you hear bad news of commercial, bad news multifamily, well, all that money is going to go where? Residential real estate, and they're going to have to lower rates, which creates more demand for residential real estate. At the same time, new home builders haven't not kept up with the demand. And then California, as we know, all you got to do is go to San Francisco, Oakland, LA, and now San Diego, and you see what's going on in California. It's collapsing. Literally in Oakland, in San Francisco, and LA, people are actually leaving because it's collapsing. That's not my words, that's their words, right? And none of us have to be told that California's collapse is creating a huge exodus to Vegas. I mean, how many offers do you get where people from California, a lot of times haven't even sold their house yet, right? And people are, concerned about the interest rates. The reason why, another reason why we're so busy in Vegas and basically all over the country right now is that a lot of the buyers right now in Vegas, probably 60, 70%, they don't care if the rates go to 8 or 9%. We're busy right now just because it's cyclical. It's that time of year. They were around in October, November, December. It's just cyclical for the last 100 years. This is always busier than that time of year. And we're seeing people from California, they don't care if it's 6, 7, 8, 9% interest rate. You know why? It's a hell of a lot cheaper than the taxes in California, especially the new ones. I could sit here for an hour just talking about the new taxes they're putting in California. And that is the biggest impact. So when the interest rates go up and down, Vegas really doesn't feel that much because we have California right next to us, right? And they're just coming. And what do they care if they're paying an extra $200 or $300? They just made $2 million on a 1954 house that was they bought for $17,000, right? That's no exaggeration, okay? Anybody know where Van Nuys, California is? Okay, so there was this attorney that was talking. I know it because my grandma lived there, so I'm real familiar with the area. A 2,000 square foot house in Van Nuys, this lawyer just bought. 2,000 square foot house in Van Nuys, built in the 40s or 50s, and it was $1.8 million, okay? When it was built, it was probably anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. My grandma paid $15,000 for her house in Van Nuys. So that house is probably, now it's $1.8 million. So how does that person afford it? Well, he got the rate was 5.75, and his monthly payment, he put down 20%, 10 or 20%, whatever it was, and his payment is $12,000 a month. So he has to make 20 grand a month just to afford that house. So how many people in California can afford a house right now, right? The people that are in houses have been there for years, right? Or you get help from somebody. And right now, do 2 minutes and we'll get you on. One of the biggest impacts right now, too, that we're starting to see, and this is going to have an impact on, and this is another reason why people that are waiting to buy stuff, the biggest protection is assets right now, right? And what's a lot of people that we're dealing with right now? What's hindering right now? They're a little sick right now, right? They have inflation nation hangover, right? Now, not only has everything gone up in price, so now we're having a double whammy. See, so the average household, their expenses is up $1,017. So the average expenses are up $1,017 from 2000, right? Just 3 years. So don't forget, when you see inflation is dropping, what does that mean? Does that mean prices are going back down? No, prices are just going up at a lower percentage rate. But guess what? That base is a lot more. So the real dollar value could be the same or more than it was previously, because even if the percentage of inflation is lower, because the base is higher. You ever seen someone on the news or the mainstream media tell you, oh, the inflation rate for 2 years is this. The inflation rate for 3 years is this. You ever see that? No. They do a yearly basis to make it look like inflation is less than it really is. But if they went 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, now you'll really see what the true impact of inflation is. Like Nevada is a perfect example. what's happening right now that people are going, including me. Oh, what is this? Gas bill, that's a good one, but that's not even, we haven't hit that yet. That's utilities. Car insurance. Car insurance? The average person's car insurance in Nevada went up 47%. Two reasons. Number one, drive down the 215, look at all those billboards, and that's a lot of money, right? And the second reason is because why? Cars are more expensive now. The replacement cost is a lot more, right? And actually, Nevada is number 2 in the whole country for car insurance. We're right behind New York. And then don't forget home insurance, right? The home insurance is going up because of what's going on in California. And that's another reason. See, we think these costs are a lot, right? These costs are a lot to us because we're here, we're locals, right? You show these costs to people in California and they start laughing at you hysterically, right? They laugh at you, and that's why they're coming here in droves. And the number one place for people, then when they leave Los Angeles, the number one place to come to is where? Las Vegas. So just in Los Angeles, just Los Angeles alone, we have a feeder market of 16 million people, right? And most of their homes are above $1 million. Most of them, right? Most of them are above $1 million. And a lot of them are 3, 4, 5 million. And then the second place people come to Vegas, San Francisco. So San Francisco is the second location. Do you know the number one location that people from San Francisco go to? Austin. Austin's the number one place. Google Austin, see how Austin's doing. So we can actually predict what's gonna happen based on what is happening in other parts. And that's a quick plug to the political committee. What's it called? Political affairs. Make sure you get involved in political affairs. Start going to those meetings, because I assure you one of the biggest impacts on your business is going to be the political atmosphere. So make sure you hit that committee, and so you know what's going on in that. So if we have time, we're going to break down what's going on in China and California and how you can take advantage. You'll be able to see what's going on in China, what they do when you see the reports. Oh, China's doing this. Then you're going to know what's going to happen with the interest rates, and you're going to know what's going to happen with the future assets, right? And then same thing with California. When you see all this news out of California, they got a $58 billion budget deficit, $68 billion now. What's that going to do? What are they going to do? What are those clowns going to? They're not clowns. They're the best sales. Hey, they're the best salespeople for Las Vegas real estate you could ever imagine. But what does that do every time? They're already talking about raising taxes again. So you see a surge, especially you, Bruce. You see all these luxury people coming, huh? Crazy, huh? Yeah, collecting those checks. So with that, if we have time, we'll talk about that. You ready? And the good thing about Cameron's, like one of the best economists I've seen, he was also, he'll tell you, he was also in the private sector. So when he's telling you these numbers, he's telling us how it impacts our business and how it's going to impact real estate, and how these fake numbers that come out impact our interest rates, impact our market. Because don't forget, a lot of these decisions are based on these numbers that come out, and a lot of these algorithms that come out, they don't really look at the report, they just look at the headlines. That's why when you see headlines, you'll see interest rates go up like that, because the algorithms are just reading the headlines that are being put out. Go ahead, bro.
Let's see here. Did that turn on? There we go. Awesome. Very cool.
And then Cameron was nice enough to let us, like when stuff comes up, we can pinpoint some stuff, how these numbers impact us more. So he's not a boring economist. He knows what he's talking about.
I may not be a boring economist, but I am still the resident nerd in the room, I think. So I'm the resident numbers guy. As Steve was saying, my name's Cameron Belt. Sorry, I'm just going to adjust this up a little bit. And I work for RCG Economics for the past 6 years. I actually have been the local CFO for Lyft and Uber for a little while as well. So my job was to look at macro trends and understand how those impact our micro markets, because I was in charge of the Southwest. And Vegas is different than San Francisco, is different than Nashville. So it was all about me understanding how our market moves and how we need to be able to adapt and understand given other information. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and just start off. A lot of people ask me what is economics, and I give them a really simple answer. It's what economists do. That's it, simple. That should clear up any confusion that everybody has in this room. No, I joke, I'm being facetious. Again, economics is not really about data, it's about people. We use data and we understand data, but it's about people. A lot of times when I was at Lyft, I was the only economist in a room full of data scientists. And I had to bring these people back down to ground and understand that, hey, we're making decisions here, but these are people, not atoms, not little bits. They have lives, and averages don't exist, right? That's not representative of the real world. So what is the real world? How do we understand that is what drives and motivates me. And that's what motivates a lot of other economists. But there's also bad economists out there too. Maybe if we have time later, we can talk about
Powell.
He's one of them, yeah, exactly. So just today's roadmap at a high level, and I'm gonna go kind of quickly, but at the same time, I'm gonna try not to talk too fast. We're gonna look at the US economy and inflation, earnings, savings, and debt, what I think are the three biggest things at the macro level right now. Those are the three things that matter most. We're gonna transition to Southern Nevada, look at jobs and wages, visitors and gaming, look at housing a little bit. You guys are all experts in housing way more than I am, but at least I might be able to provide some perspectives that I'm looking at to be able to augment what you guys see in the ground and in the trenches. And last, we'll just talk about what I call final thoughts, recession or resilience. So with that, we'll go into the US economy. So GDP continues to climb on paper, right? We see it quarter after quarter after quarter, just keeps going up. One thing to highlight is that corporate profits have taken a bit of a hit. It made sense. That big jump that you see there in corporate profits isn't corporations becoming greedy, it's inflation. Inflation caught up fast, and they were able to start selling inventories that they bought beforehand at lower rates. So that initial jump was not necessarily about that. And also the inflation numbers, or the profit numbers here aren't adjusted for inflation at all. So you see that huge jump there. The headlines are greed, greed, greed. In reality, it's, hey, I can now sell this thing for $100 that I bought for 40, right? And as adjusted out and it slowed down a bit, you've seen corporate profits take a little bit more of a deceleration. Inflation is up 3.3% in December. The new numbers came out this morning. Sorry, I didn't wake up early enough to update the presentation with what just dropped, 2 hours ago. But it is fast. It actually was a lot faster this month than what the expectations were. I think the expectations were 2.9 and it came in at 3.1. But as Steve was saying, this is my least favorite graph to show people because it just shows the year-over-year change, right? I prefer to look at it like this. This is inflation by category, setting it at 2021. Gas is up 40%. Food is up 20%. All items are up 17%. Core prices, which is just not, excluding, I think it's energy, it's up 16, but wages are only up 12. So when people are saying, oh, inflation's slowing down, inflation says, we all know that that's not true, right? We know that it's sure, inflation might be slowing down, but prices aren't adjusting and wages are lagging behind. Now, that's not a surprise. Economists do expect this almost always, that inflation will outpace wage growth, but wage growth is sluggish right now and we are feeling it in real time. There is a silver lining to all this. I'm not just some doom and gloom guy up here. We are what I like to call the prettiest horse in the glue factory. Inflation in America is way less than everywhere else, right? So we have the best of a kind of crappy situation, but it's good to know where we really are.
Well, real quick.
Yep.
So you put that back there. That's also, America is like the new Switzerland for real estate, right? American real estate is the new gold. The whole world is coming here to buy real estate. And now residential real estate is one of the top commodities that they are buying. So you're exactly right. Yep. Everyone's coming here as a safety net from their country, no matter where it is, China, Europe. I mean, where do you want to put your money? I give you any place in the world where you want to put your money. What other country would you put besides the US? Well, what do you think those people, every country has a lot of billionaires and tons of millionaires. Where do you think they're going to put their money? Especially China, Venezuela, European Union, all those countries. Go ahead.
And this is especially true when rates have been so low for so long. In the early parts of coming out of the shutdown, the lockdowns, I don't really call it the pandemic. I like to really understand that it was the lockdowns that did a lot of real damage here, right? Coming out of that, we started pumping money, kept rates low. That money that gets pumped out in the economy doesn't come out to us all at the same time. Some of it did, in stimulus checks, things like that. But what happens is it funnels its way through to the first receivers. And the first receivers get yesterday's prices. And then the next receivers get yesterday's plus a little bit more. And then so on and so forth, all the way down. And so big hedge funds, they were the first receivers. They were able to get this. They were able to buy homes at less than 1% interest rate. I mean, I don't blame them for doing that because it makes sense, right? It makes business sense. If you're able to take out some loans and buy an asset that appreciates at 3% for less than 1%, that's just good business. The problem is that we created, not we, but the Fed created a distorted reality that caused that behavior, right? That's what was going on, was this behavior was encouraged as a result of policies. So these are the big things I like to highlight: earnings, savings, and debt. Median household incomes have declined 4.7% year over year over year since 2019. Personal savings rate is now half of the pre-2020 trend. So earnings are down, savings are down, and debt has come back up to the trend where we were prior to pre-2020. So if we just sit back and think about this, earnings are down, savings are down, and debt is up. Is that healthy? I don't really think so, right? When people ask me, will there be a recession or not, that's more of a technical definition, and I'll get to that later. My question is always, is the economy healthy, right? Because a recession is just 2 quarters of negative GDP growth. Okay, we won't know about that until 4 quarters later anyways, because we always got to look backwards and they release and revise these numbers. In reality, the consumers, the purchasers that are coming to you, the sellers that are coming to you, this is what they're dealing with, right? Debt is up. They don't have the cushions necessarily. According to the Fed, we racked up $2.1 trillion in savings during the pandemic, and we spent all of it already. It's gone. Unprecedented $100 billion per month. And so when we look at these GDP numbers and we're sitting there and we're saying, how is GDP up and up and up and up? Well, it's because we've been saving, burning through this nest egg, right? Not just necessarily the excess savings that happened as a result of the pandemic, but also what was possibly there beforehand too. GDP can keep going upwards just as a result of activity, but if there's not something else going on in the background, especially investments and saving, then that does spell a little bit of issues for the future, right? Savings drives investment. Investment drives growth. Right now, we're seeing this continued increase in GDP, but it's coming at a potential loss of tomorrow's. It's a real thing to be aware of. So as I talked about this, there's macro problems and there's micro solutions. So I'm not up here talking about the sky is falling, some doom and gloom guy. I'm not really, because I'm very bullish on Nevada and Vegas. And one thing that we didn't talk about is my background. My family's been in Las Vegas since the 1930s. I'm the 5th generation of my family to live here. We've seen a lot. Not me necessarily, but I can still ask my grandma, I ask my great-grandparents, and so, but in any case, I'm very bullish because when I look at the data in Vegas, there's a lot of really good there. So let's highlight some of the good. In terms of jobs and wages, Nevada is actually at the top of a list for once. We've led the nation in annual job growth in November, October, September, month over month over month. We've seen job growth outpacing the rest of the US. I know it's a really hard graph to read, but I like to just show it up there because, again, we're not at the top of many lists, right? And Nevada is clearly leading the West. If we look at this, just the same information, but look at it in terms of a map, the more yellow you are, the more growth you're experiencing. And I don't know if you guys can see, but California over there is kind of in the red, right? Oregon is kind of in the purple. And there's some issues with those few states, right? Like markets like Portland, San Francisco, we were talking about before. There is a bit of an exodus happening, and people are coming to here. In total, non-farm jobs are up 10% compared to pre-2020. That is a good thing. That's an amazing thing. That's crazy, honestly. That's some serious growth. That's that black line there. The red line is the year-over-year change. So we can see that it's slowed down a little bit, but it's still above the trend that we've been seeing for the last 10 years. Here's one. I like to call this one story, two charts. Average weekly earnings in Nevada have trended up 50% since 2013. But when you adjust it for inflation, it's only up 7%. This is one of those things that does not get reported out enough. You go to any other economics presentation, and I'm telling you right now, you'll see this one. Any sort of normal reports are going to come out, they're going to talk about the nominal rate, the current dollars. But when adjusted for inflation, which we have to do now, for the last 10 years, we kind of get away with it because there wasn't a lot, but we just went through a period of insane inflation. We need to start adjusting all of our numbers throughout the state for inflation. Our gaming numbers, our taxable retail sales numbers, all of it, they need to be adjusted. I was on a call not too long ago where I was the only person on with a bunch of state authorities, and I said, hey, we adjust this for inflation, and there was crickets. But I can say since then, they have started to adjust it, which is a good thing because we need to understand real wealth, right? It's not just paper. It's not apples to apples if we don't compare it based off of adjustments in inflation. So Southern Nevada Today, visitors and gaming, just to touch on this a little bit because it's really important to our economy. Visitor volume is recovering. It's still 5% lower than the pre-2020 trend. The thing that's a little worrisome to me, though, is convention attendance is still down 10%. I don't know if you guys have gone to any conferences, but whenever I went to conferences while I was at Uber or Lyft, I was a little bit more spendthrift with the with the corporate card, right? I was like, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and spend a little bit more than what's coming out of my pocket, right? Conventions being down is not a very good thing for the city. What happened is, and I happen to know this because I've got some inside information from the convention side of things, a lot of other cities started to compete for business when the lockdowns occurred. And a lot of conventions haven't necessarily come back quite yet. They may, because other cities aren't Vegas, right? You take your convention to Chicago and it's not as good of an experience as it is here. So this might be a trend that changes because we are the best at doing this. No question. Nobody can say any different, right? We threw F1 and it went off without a hitch. We threw the Super Bowl and it went off without a hitch. That is impressive, right? So this is another one of those one story, two charts. Everybody's been hearing, we've been citing gaming win and making headlines. We're up 20% by peak. Every month, we broke headlines. We broke headlines. We're making records. But when you adjust it for inflation, there's a difference between the black line and the red line. We're actually down 28% from our peak in 2006. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just that we aren't doing as much wealth transfer as we were in 2006. So as an accountant, you'd sit here and say, we're breaking records on paper, which is really cool, and it's nice to feel that. As an economist, I go, hold on a second, right? That's not really apples to apples comparison. It's like, if we're just, anyways. But then investors, I gave this presentation to an organization called Jefferies Group, which has $400 billion in assets under management, and they were looking to invest more and more money here in casinos. I told them this, and they go, that's interesting, but what that tells me as an investor is your market hasn't topped out yet. It has more to grow, right? And that's a really, really cool way to think about this also, is that we can be confident that there is more out there that we could be capturing potentially, right? It's what do we need to do that? Because we are breaking records, but we're still behind ourselves from 20 years ago.
It's funny you say that because you see on mainstream media all the time now that they're saying, yeah, we're having the best economy ever, record prices, record this, record that, but the consumers just aren't feeling it. They don't feel like they're having the best economy. They don't feel good about the economy or their jobs right now. Well, maybe you should go on CBC and explain to them why.
Maybe. So just to touch on housing, again, you guys are all the experts, but I will give a little bit of a perspective that I think is kind of interesting here. There's two graphs I like to show. First of all, when we look at the Case-Shiller Index, that compares Nevada, Las Vegas specifically, to the top of the 20 real estate markets. That top line is the other 20 markets. That red line is Las Vegas. We're more affordable than all the other top 20 markets by a long shot, right? We all know this, and you all see it when people come in and say, I'm moving here because it's too expensive where I'm from. That's awesome for everybody moving here. But what about for people who live here? For those of us who live here, again, Las Vegas is red, the US is black. Our housing affordability index, when you look at median incomes, is 50% lower than the rest of the US. Now, a lot of this has to do with mortgage rates because we were pretty good beforehand, and right where it divulges, where it spreads apart, that's where the rates started to really get bigger. What this tells me is, hey, our median incomes here locally aren't keeping pace, right? And we should be aware of that, right? This is real. But what can we do to fix that? It's kind of outside a lot of our hands, but it's nice for us to be aware of so we can talk with our buyers about this.
Yeah, what happened? Go back.
Yeah, of course.
So see where that happens. What happened? Not only did they print all that money, but what else happened in Vegas during that period of time? All the hedge funds came in and started buying properties, remember? That's an exact correlation. So the hedge funds came in and then the California exits ramp up. And if you remember, I think during that period, the hedge funds were buying 1,000 a month, so 18-month period. I think they bought like either 18,000 or 24,000 homes in an 18-month period.
Turn your mic on. Turn your mic on, Steve.
about the impact that the hedge funds have had on the real estate market. It correlates with that graph perfect.
Absolutely. So again, just you've seen this graph a lot. This is mortgage rates coming down a little bit, but we don't need to talk about that anymore. This is one that I will highlight though, that I think is kind of interesting. I don't believe the real estate market will burst, okay? This is a very interesting graph. What this is looking at is, the red line is the amount of owed in mortgages. The blue line is equity that homeowners currently have. That is a huge gap. Especially here in Las Vegas, I can't remember what percentage it is, but I think it's 30-40% are what's called cash rich in their house right now. That's awesome, but it provides two different things. One, it causes people to feel like, okay, I'm just gonna sit back and stay where I am, right? Or two, it starts to see people going towards HELOCs, right? Especially when debt and savings and other avenues are drying up, they can tap into something that they have more control over, right? That's what's making me think that we're probably not gonna pop. The last time that we did pop here in Las Vegas was, in 08, right there, where that went downwards and equity was negative compared to that. But we saw this happen even beforehand, all the way in 04 when that equity started to decrease down. That's when people started to leveraging themselves too much, took some equity out. But right now we're not seeing that quite yet. And I think we'll have time for questions in a little bit. So just to wrap up here, recession or resilience. Recessions are really hard to call. Economists have called 9 out of the last 5. Okay, so our track record's impeccable and you guys should listen to every single thing that I say. Please, Just so you know, I definitely have a lot in the summit being built right now. I don't, not at all. I don't have that good enough of a crystal ball. That being said, I do think the recession is possible in 2024. One thing that I didn't bring up because it's more of a technical thing, but the gap between gross domestic income and GDP is what's spent and gross domestic income is what's earned. It's two sides of the same equation, right? They should equal up. The two have been in a pretty big gap for the last, I think, 5 quarters. They should be tracking together. The gap is the largest that it's been in the past 20 years. So to me, that makes sense that, okay, we're taking on debt and we're expending all of our savings. If that's the case, then we may already be in the front end of a recession. But the problem is that we have no idea when it's gonna happen because the issue of what I call release and revise. The government will come out, the authorities will come out and say, hey, GDP was 3.9%, 2 months later, actually it was 3, 2 months later, actually it was 2.5. And that happens with the job numbers also. All these numbers, they're all estimates. Nobody has, again, a nice crystal ball at the macroeconomy level to say with certainty this is exactly what's going on in every area at all times. It's an estimate, right? But those estimates can change. And so that's where these things get adjusted, and all of a sudden we might be in a recession, but we realize it 4 quarters later, right? But all that doesn't matter to us. We know this already. We're feeling it. The negative effects of a recession are in our day-to-day lives. They're not just on a chart.
Have a recession. Go ahead.
Again, I'm very... Yes, sir, if you could just hold your comments to the end, thank you. No, we had an explicit understanding that he was going to comment while we talked because sometimes I can be a little too high level and he wants to make sure we ground it down for everybody in the room.
Security.
I want to say, again, I am an optimist about Nevada for all the reasons that I showed earlier, right? The job growth is awesome. And it's not just crap jobs at all. It's not just small, low-paying jobs in Nevada. We're a little bit different than what the national numbers are looking at. The biggest sectors we've seen gain are professional and business services, which is what a lot of development economists call like the lifeblood of an economy, right? We're now a real economy because we're seeing more and more of that. That's a really, really good thing. So with resilience in mind, there's 2 big issues that I want to highlight for everybody in Nevada, especially realtors. One is land availability is extremely limited. The amount of land that we have available does threaten our economic growth, not just the ability to build new homes, but also the ability to build new businesses, new commercial real estate, things like that. And the other thing that's hindering our resiliency is Nevada is not necessarily as business friendly as people might have you think. I happen to have been in an industry where I was actively going against barriers and my job was threatened by the governor even at one point because of things that were the things that were enacted. We ranked 43rd on barriers to entrepreneurship throughout the US. In terms of land policies, we rank 37th, right? There's some serious issues here that we need to be aware of and we need to be able to address. So when Steve is talking about, your guys' political committee that you have to be in charge of, I'm not too sure about that, but please be involved as much as you possibly can, because this is the micro stuff that we can do potentially here. This is the things that we can be aware of.
You read my mind. That's why I walked to get the microphone, so I'll keep the comments after. But exactly what he's saying, when I first moved here, entrepreneur businesses would come here and say how great Nevada was, easy to do business, blah, blah, blah. And now it's 43rd. That was just a few years ago. We were one of the top places to do business. But why? Because people have fell asleep at our political landscape. And it's another reason why you should go to the political committee so you can find out what's going on and have your voice. How do you have your voice? Social media, right? All you got to do, you have enough content from this event for the next 6 months, right? So no more stupid TikTok videos, okay? Okay, that doesn't work. Give them content and educate people and let them know why, what is happening, why if they're local, why they can't afford a house, why. I got a friend that has a mortgage company. He's trying to put a wall up in his office in Henderson. 9 months. Are you kidding me? He wants to put up a drywall 9 months. This is the kind of stuff that's going on. Inspirada Station has had problems because of these crazy laws that they're putting in. Another one we talked last time, they want the commercial buildings to take out the water, what are they called, swamp coolers?
Yeah.
They want them to take out the swamp
cooling
coolers and replace them with air conditioners. Yeah. The cost on that per the building for utilities is going to be astronomical. And that's one reason why people companies are heading towards Arizona or Utah. And this is how, when you get involved in the political action committee, you can actually put your voice. But more importantly, go on social media. Even if you get, it doesn't matter how many views you get, you're going to reach some people and then they're going to be educated. And that's the best way to stay in front of them, by educating what's going on, because every consumer wants to know what's going on and they can't get the information if they're just going on regular mainstream media or newspapers, right? This is how you dig deep. Thank you. Go ahead.
No, absolutely. And that's exactly it. And I can't echo those statements more. I want to leave everybody with one final thought. And it's my favorite quote when it comes to economics, because again, I'm a nerd, right? But the curious task of economics is to demonstrate to men how little they know about what they really think they can design. This world is more complex than anybody, any one of you and I. The market is smarter than all of us combined together. We need to be aware of that, and we need to allow for that to occur. But we also need to be aware of when people are trying to actively plan our economy or actively trying to control these things, because it goes against the interests of all of us potentially in this room, because we know what's best for ourselves at times, right? There can be really, really good things that can occur on a larger basis, but at the end of the day, it's our paychecks that get affected, it's our spending that gets impacted, and we just need to be aware of that. So that's my little spiel. Thanks for having me, I appreciate that.
All right, awesome. We'll give Cameron here a few moments for some questions and answers. Just before I open it up to questions and comments, hearing some phones go off, if you guys could just please silence that. And then also, Cameron, is your slide deck proprietary? Can you email it to us?
No, I can. Yeah, I can have it emailed out.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Because I saw a lot of you guys taking pictures also of the slide, so we'll get that slide over to you guys. All right, so open it up for Q&A. I'll have Noah over here.
Hold on. Let's do 2 questions for Cameron, then we can ask questions later on him. At the end, we'll ask questions for Mike and Mike. So keep your questions and comments, and then we'll get to them at the end.
So we'll do a couple questions now. Just raise your hand if you do get called on. Just say your name and what company you're with. I'll have Noah walk around and pass around the microphone a little bit. Do we have any questions?
I got one right over here. And first of all, if we could please have everyone sit down, if there's chairs available, we please have you sit down. Your name and your company.
I know, I'm Teresa Story with Platinum. My question for Cameron, when he had up the gaming slide and I saw Baccarat up there, was that inclusive of sports betting, or is that separate? Or
No, it should be in there, just net of Baccarat. What you do is you just remove the Baccarat from there because it's very volatile, and you don't really know how it's just one of those things where it's best to net it out, because you might have one player come in and it's not indicative of the overall trend. It's just one guy who comes in and either bets a lot or whatever else. So you try to remove it to get it be as more consistent of a trend as possible. But on the sports gaming notes, I will say this is a little bit of breaking news. I did the calculations last night. I saw it got posted out on social media that the Gaming Control Board said that we just broke a record in terms of how much was bet during the Super Bowl. I adjusted all the numbers for inflation, and we're about 3% below what we were in 2018.
Do we have one more question for Cameron before we
Hold
continue the
on.
panel?
Did
Okay.
those numbers count Mary Perry's son's bets?
No comment.
Adjust those for inflation.
Do we have, all right, one more question for Cameron before we continue on with the panel?
Actually, we'd also like to recognize Victoria Seaman. Victoria, stand up, please, for all your service and all your work. Our Commissioner, Victoria Seaman.
All right. I see no more questions, so we'll get moving on with the panel. If you guys do think of another question for Cameron, we can take them at the end as well. Yeah. All you, Steve.
Mr. Lamborghini, Mike Sweeney, the new home man. You're printing money over at those new home builders, man, huh?
No,
Mike was walking in,
out
there
of
was
ink.
hundreds just falling out of his pocket.
Okay, enough of the builder jokes. Hi, everybody. I'm Mike Sweeney. I think a lot of you guys know me from Train and Tour. I also work for a lender, Supreme Lending, in town. I want to thank Steve for, this is our second year that I did Trends with Steve. We did this one last year, and the numbers we predicted, kind of uncanny, but they're almost exactly what we thought. And I'm older than these guys, so I got to take out my notes. Terrible when you're a senior statesman, and I think I'm the oldest guy in this room, maybe. Third oldest. Yeah, sure. That way I can use both my hands like a normal Italian. Okay, again, I'd like to thank Steve, Mary Perry, your new president, and Wendy. There's a lot of very influential people in here. Yeah, give them a round of applause. Noah Herrera, where's Noah? And I'd like to just as a one-off, we got to do TNT in your building again because of the people I just mentioned. And we owe you a big debt of gratitude. Oh, it's my pleasure. So I'm the one that kind of drew the short straw 10 years ago with the builders to kind of bridge the gap between the realtors and the builders. And that was a 3-month program 9 years ago. So now I'm really lucky. I get to be in some of your guys' panels and some of the builders' panels and committee meetings. So what Steve asked me to do, you guys use percentages a lot, but Steve wanted me to get you guys actual numbers. So here's the numbers for year end for your numbers on existing sales and what the builders built. But keep in mind one thing, every builder doesn't report back to us, the custom guys in particular, so these numbers are a little bit light. So that, even to Steve's credit, we said about 40%, we're gonna hit last year, 30 to 40%. Well, here's the numbers, you guys. You guys, existing homes was 29,069. Builders did 11,140. That's 38.9%. That's pretty close between 30 and 40. And these numbers actually are a little bit light because in the month of December, the builders had the best month they had in December since 2007. We sold 936 houses in the month of December. So if that was a resale house, they probably would have closed in the same month. They would have closed in the calendar year of last year. So that 11,140 probably would have been a few hundred higher. So that 38.9, Steve would have been right at 40%. And then when you put the big builders in there, the customs and stuff, we were over 40. So that was just December alone. That was pretty good. And of that mix, the 11,000, this is another thing you guys keep talking about, affordable housing. Well, what builders have started doing, in case you guys haven't noticed, there's a lot of townhouses coming out of the ground. Of that mix last year, 76% were single-family detached houses. 24% were attached townhouses. And that's an 18% increase from the year before. So get used to seeing the builders. They're not going to take us out of this equity shortage, but they're going to have a lot of attached homes you're going to see coming over the next few years. So in the 936 houses I said in December that sold, 721 were single family, 215 were detached or attached. That's a 29% increase in 1 month. And that's a monstrous increase to years gone past. And of those numbers, 38% were cash. So the lenders like me in this room feel our pain. We don't make any money on cash sales, you guys. So overall, that was a 23% increase from the year before. Our median price, I might say ours once in a while, I'm talking about Southern Nevada home builders. And the new single-family residences, we were 507, 879,000, which was actually a 3% decrease from the year before. So what the builders are doing, they're building smaller houses to get the affordability in check. So again, that number was 507, 879, and that was down 3%, 3.3 to be exact, from 2022. Your existing homes average medium is 449, 900. So if you remember a couple 5, 7 years ago, the disparity in houses, new versus used, I'm not supposed to say used, existing, was like, that's Nate Hodson. New versus existing, we were always $100,000 to $150,000 difference. Well, that number's come down dramatically. Like I said, we're 507, you guys are 550. That's about 60 grand. So that number's really, really come down. So that disparity, nobody can say new homes are too expensive, because it's really not. Okay. And then attached, again, townhouses, the average price for builders new was $373,990. Your existing homes were $270. Okay, and permits. I heard somebody talk about permits earlier. In 23, total permits pulled were 11,795. In the month of December, and I'm going to go back to why the month of December was so incredibly huge for the builders, we pulled 612 permits alone in the month of December. That's a 140% increase from the year before. So that needs to tell you something. Going to Jer's, to his slides, I'm going to steal a whole bunch of those, because some of that stuff was really, really good. So that's a 140% increase just in 1 month, because December was a pretty good month for the builders this year. Cancellations, we call them cans. In the 11th month in November of 2022, we were running 40% cancellations. That number's now down since to 14%. That's about normal for the builders. 10 to 15% cans is about right. So people are buying the new houses, you guys, just because of the lack of inventory. So the net sales for builders in our town was anywhere from 8 to 52% increase. The 52% was Pulte because they bought America West. And that's pretty good. There was one builder who was a little bit off, but there's reasons for that. Our walk traffic, as we refer to it, those are the people that come through the models on any given week. This number is always hugely understated. It's like 3,000 to 4,000. That's up about 4% from a year ago. But those numbers, that's just what people, when they go into the models and register. So you guys have been in new house projects. I would say 1 in 5 actually register. So that number's up considerably.
So there's 4,000 people actually registered at a new home.
Correct.
And that's a week or a month?
That's in a week.
That's a week?
Yeah, because there's a lot of.
Oh, so that's
we got-
60,000 a month.
Yeah, we got a couple hundred communities now.
And you're saying, and that's only 25% of the real number, so
Well, that's my opinion, it's 25%. I think
So
it's
even if
way,
it's
way
double,
more.
even if it's double, it's 32,000 people going
Yeah,
through your
it's
homes a month.
considerably more. Because the builders are contend that you're being represented by agents is 80%. I personally think it's way, way less. I think it's closer to 50. Oh, thank you. I don't know if they'd like to hear that, but in going on to the economist slides, the biggest concerns the builders being in a bunch of their committee meetings, rates naturally is a big concern. I think everybody's got over that. You better get used to saying 6.5, 7. Rates are probably going to stay higher for longer. Their biggest concern is the availability of land. We're running out of dirt incredibly fast. If the BLM doesn't do something to release some land, we're going to be in trouble in 24 months. That's their number one concern, because BLM still owns 85% of the dirt in Nevada. Another thing you're going to see from the builders, you guys call them spec or quick move-ins. The builders are so sure that there's going to be a lack of existing inventory that builders like KB Homes are building spec homes to 100 to 200. If you would have said that 5 years ago, you'd get thrown into a mental clinic, because there's no such thing. Richmond, it's very hard to buy a Richmond house and pick your lot and pick your model, because they're already placing specific houses on specific lots, because they know if they build them, they will sell them. So the builders know there's going to be a big, they're knowing last year was a great year for them. This year is going to be even better, because people are used to that 6.5%, 7%. And then I heard Steve say about the 4.9% interest rate and all that. When you guys take a listing, you can tell your clients to throw 2 points at the closing costs. You can do the same things the builders do. They're just doing forward commitments. So you can do the exact same thing. So you guys can get your clients down into the 5.5% range. So it's not just for the builder. What I tell people at TNT, copy what the builders do. If they're doing it, you should do it too. Just take 2 points instead of discounting the price of the house, throw it towards buying down the rate. So like I said, they knew they could have sold more if they had more. Another thing that is in all our conversations, watch for concessions to dissipate. They're not going to be what they were a year ago. 4% rate and $40,000 towards cost. The builders paid way too much. At the end of the year, they did their analysis. They lost a fortune in concessions. And these guys are publicly traded. They have to stay to a certain margin. They can't build the houses any cheaper. The land's not getting any cheaper. Labor's not going down. So watch this year for concessions. They're not going to disappear, but they're going to get a lot lighter than they have been in previous, especially last year and a half. So watch out for those concessions. Does anybody here have anything to do with Las Vegas Athletic or Las Vegas Convention Center? Husbands, wives, boyfriends, next door neighbors? You're kidding. Nobody? Well, it's listening to Steve also. One thing I'm very up on Vegas, there's not another town in the world that can say we just won a Stanley Cup, or girls just won a national championship in basketball. We have F1 just came here, which is a huge, huge, unbelievable thing. We got 2 NASCAR races. We just had the Super Bowl. We hit every one of those things out of the park. So it's not, yeah. So we went right from the Super Bowl to the Crystal Ball. That's right. So there's a lot of good stuff happening in our town, you guys. So
Ever since we've been doing the crystal ball, house prices have been going up 10, 15%.
yeah, so that's why Steve gets all that extra money from the county. But there's a lot of great stuff happening in our city, like no other city on earth, not just in Nevada or Las Vegas or in the United States. This is happening. People are watching us international. The biggest viewership ever for the Super Bowl was Sunday, and we nailed it. We are the greatest town in the world, and you guys got to remember that, and everybody's going to see that. I think people are going to come here in droves, more than 115 people a day. And that's what I got more notes, but I could be here until tomorrow. But one thing I got to leave you guys with, you got to be friends with the builders because they are going to sell 40% of the houses this year that you guys close. And they're going to sell them without you or with you. So you guys might as well make the commission. A couple of the builders are doing incentives, 3%, 4%, 5%. You guys need to make friends with the builders. They're not your adversaries. They're your partners. And don't treat them like how, I know what happened in 2000, whatever. That was a century ago. Half the guys in this room, girls, probably weren't even selling real estate back in 2007. So what was is in the past. What is you guys better make friends. I'm not telling you what to do. You guys should make friends with the builders because a lot of houses are going to be sold this year. That number could go north of 45%, like Steve says. I think it's going to be closer to 50. And that's all I got. Those are just the numbers that Steve wanted me to share with you guys.
Thank you, Mike. Do you have time for like 1 or 2 questions before we move on to our final panelist? No?
All right, I'm coming down.
We got one. Just remember to say your name and the company that you're with.
Yvette, GK Properties. My question is, with the increase of new home sales, why is the MLS not reflecting those sales for the agents? I closed about 8 last year. I've already closed 6 new homes this year, and those numbers are not reflected at all. And I'm just wondering why we're not getting on the trend of what the realtors are starting to produce and why that's not being reflected.
That's a whole different
I could
meeting.
I could quickly answer that. Most of the builders aren't members of our MLS board, so those sales aren't reflected in the MLS. You can do a comp sold only though.
Comp only. Oh. Go on, Lexi. No. Remember
All right, Joel,
who
I'm gonna
cuts
have
your
to ask you,
checks,
please.
buddy. Lexi Glassman, Platinum Real Estate Professionals. That is because you have to enter a comp only sold. So it's super easy. It literally takes 5 to 6 minutes. All you have to do, and then not only do agents have that to base as comp line, but it gives your broker and yourself credit for those sales in the MLS and just builds your ranking. So 5 to 7 minutes per listing.
I know she got to put it under somebody else's name.
We'll do if there's time for one more question for Mike, and then we can move on to other Mike. All right, seeing no more questions. All right, we'll move on.
Oh, wait, there's one back here.
Oh, just
One
kidding.
back
There's
here.
one more
1
question.
second. Excuse me?
Patty Morgan with Shelter Realty. Hi, Steve.
Hey, how you doing?
So with the new home builders being so much of the sales that are going to be coming, do you anticipate that commissions they'll no longer need or incentivize the agents for, bringing the buyers as they used to?
We can't hear you.
Overall, you can expect almost every builder in town to remain where they are, to 2.5% to even 5%. There's going to be a one-off here and there, but for the most part, they're going to pay commissions. They know they need you guys to sell their houses. It's built in our GLs for the 3% commission. But I'm just telling you, guys are only selling maybe 50. I say I get an argument with them every time we have a committee. I don't think you guys are 80% participation with the builders. It's not the builders' fault. They're publicly traded companies. They build them. They have to sell them. They just like you. A part of what we're doing with Noah and Steve and Mary Perry now is trying to get the builders, for the first time ever, involved with LVR. And I'm telling you, Mary and Noah especially, you guys owe that guy a huge round of applause because he actually pulled something off that's never happened before. And Mary was a huge help, and Shane and a whole bunch of people in this room, Wendy DeVecchio especially. But you guys, if we can put two of the biggest associations in the state of Nevada together, it's amazing. You guys are like 70 years old. The builders are 68. You guys don't work together. It's insane to me. I've been trying to get in this building for 14 years. And compliments of Mary Perry and again, Noah Herrera, we're in here through TNT, but at least we're in. And we do have plans of making that a little bit bigger. But that's enough. But hope that answered your question. You can anticipate that almost every builder in town will keep on paying you commissions.
Great. Thank you. Let's move on now, and if there's time at the end, we'll do more Q&A.
Real quick on the, Cameron was showing, and so was Mike, talking about the hospitality industry and the conventions. And it's down, 10% you said? So you can expect that to skyrocket over the next 24 to 36 months for two reasons. Number one, like Cameron said, a lot of those conventions left. Well, I assure you the government's on the phone saying, hey, we've changed, come on back. That's the first thing. The second, and this is the biggest factor, if you're going to do a convention, and it's already happening, okay? San Francisco, Anaheim, Los Angeles, Chicago. Chicago is huge for conventions. New York, all those cities are huge for conventions. So your company is going to have a convention, okay? And you want a lot of people to come. Are you going to go to San Francisco and dodge human feces and needles all over the floor? That's not my opinion. That's that people are leaving a convention saying that. Do you want to go to Anaheim? Anyone been in Disneyland lately? Anaheim, same thing. And then you got Chicago. You see what's going on in Chicago, and then obviously New York. These conventions are going to come back in droves here to Vegas because it's the best place by far in the world to have the convention. But more importantly, even those places that had these companies that were there for 20, 30, 40 years, they're leaving those towns because their employees don't want to go there, but they'll come to Vegas for many different reasons. And then we'll go over China real quick, California. This is good information, and then we'll hook back with Mike on how you can use a lot of this information with AI and SOI to create more transactions for you in this environment. So real quick, everybody needs to, if they already have it, I probably sound like a broken record here, but it's so important. It's one of the biggest impacts on our economy is China Go Cities. You're seeing that right now come to fruition. What we said was going to happen 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago. It's a complete Ponzi scheme, and it's the biggest Ponzi scheme ever, and it's collapsing as we speak. If you see Evergrande, everyone know, how many people know what Evergrande is? Okay, everybody should be raising their hands because it's gonna have one of the biggest impacts on the real estate market in America over the next 18 months. The second is Country Garden. Those are the two largest developers in China, okay? It was all a big Ponzi scheme, and it's all being played out now. So what they were doing, and to give you an idea, 18 months ago, we talked about this and we said, what is China gonna do? Is China gonna bail them out or save them? Well, China bailed them out that time, but it didn't work because the consumers didn't buy it. This is how big it is this time. So both of these companies defaulted. $500 billion in bad assets. $500 billion, okay? Well, how do you compare that? Okay, remember 2008, our financial crisis, right? Everything, from Countrywide to Bank of America to Citigroup, to everything. How much was that bailout? It was $800 million, or 800 billion. It was 800 billion, million. Million's nothing these days. $800 billion. Just two companies, okay? Just two real estate companies in China have already been bailed out $50 billion, or $500 billion, a half $1 trillion. That's just $300 billion less than all of our total country back in 2008 for the bailout, right? And that's just two, okay? Guess what? There's about 50 major developers in China. They all did the same thing. So they got 48 more to go. So now we're talking trillions of dollars. That's why the people in China are trying to get their money out. They're using underground banks because these properties they bought, when they bought them, when you buy new home or new units in China, you buy it, you start paying on the mortgage while they're building it, okay? A few months ago, do you remember when it was all over the news? The tanks were protecting the banks in China, okay? Well, they were protecting the banks because this is China, okay? They went in there and they were doing bank runs because they wanted their money out because they've been paying on these loans for the last 2 years. Then they go to the location where their high rise is, and guess what's there? Nothing. Nothing. And they don't trust their stock markets, and they can't put the money in the bank because they're worried about the government taking it if they have too much. So they put it in these high rises, and they use that as their savings account. Well, 75% of the wealthy and middle class in China, that's their savings account. And now it's being completely wiped out. Where do you think they're going to put their money if they can get it here? Right here. And more. Anybody see the 60 Minutes 2 weeks ago, or maybe this week, Sunday? There's middle class people from China selling everything they got and coming into America from the southern border. They go through Nicaragua, they go through all these states, or they fly into Tijuana and they go. They have their suitcases and they're just coming right across the border. As they're being interviewed, they're asking, why are you coming here? I sold my business. There's no jobs there. There's nothing, so we're coming here. They sold all their business. They're getting all their money, and they're coming here. Thousands and thousands of people are getting out of China and coming here. How many people want to leave America and go to China? Even if you gave them a first-class ticket, they're not going to go, right? That just shows you where everybody wants to come. It's still the greatest economy in the world, where you have people in the second largest economy trying to escape to come here. And they're bringing any kind of money they have because their savings has been completely wiped out in these Ponzi schemes. And this is typical for China. Why don't they invest in the stock market? Well, it's all a bunch of fraudulent stuff in China, and that's not my opinion. That's their own citizens' opinion. That's what I did in real estate. If you remember, if you see these numbers on their electrical car, now keep in mind, the same thing they did with these companies, now they've got caught doing it with these high rises and all the units. And here's why this bailout didn't work, and it's not working. Because the people now know it's a Ponzi scheme, right? Once you expose a Ponzi scheme, you're not going to have buyers come back in. So China has to completely regroup their real estate market, which is about 35% of their GDP, in order to get it going. So how's that going to impact our market here? Most likely, what's China going to do? This. They're going to do a super stimulus that the world has never seen. And that's going to cause what? Asset prices to go up. Two companies that you could look, bike sharing, just Google bike sharing in Nevada, and EV car sharing. You're shaking your head, huh? With Lyft. EV car sharing. So this, what they do, these companies, they buy their own product. They create these shell companies to buy their own product so they can raise money. So they can say, look at our sales, look at our sales. Then they raise money, and then they go later, and they take off, and they take these billions of dollars in the stock market. Because remember, you got this Communist Party there that is a you think all our senators in Congress are bad, at least there's like 300 or 400 of them. In China, there's only one corrupt company, right? So these companies that were doing this, same with the EV. If you look, you'll see tens of thousands of cars in China. They're brand new EVs just piled up in junkyards. What did they do? They created these companies, bought these EV cars so they could raise more money because it looked like sales. And that's the same thing that these developers were doing with these high rises. They were saying these things were being built and using the money for other stuff. That was their savings account. Well, how is the impact? How much of an impact is this? Well, in Bloomberg, it just said China investors are willing to pay up to 40% above market value for American assets. That's Bloomberg. So when we talk about these hedge funds that have been buying houses and these new laws that the government's trying to put in, what were those hedge funds? Cash deals, right? They were cash deals that not sourced. If we have a buyer that has a $100 deposit, oh, the lender goes crazy. Where'd this $100 come from? Blah, 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 right? Well, these guys are funneling in money from all over. So remember when these hedge funds were paying above market value? We need to know where did they get their money from, because now Bloomberg is saying that investors from China were paying up to 40% more for American assets, for stocks, for housing, for everything, commercial.
Steve, sorry to cut you off, but we do only have about 15 more minutes, and we have one
Okay,
final
we got it.
panelist. So this is all great information, but
Hey, we got time. We got
about 15 minutes, and we need to let Mike Rowland speak.
And the second thing that I'll talk about for 2 minutes is California. Hold on. Is the California collapse, okay? This is the second biggest impact that we're having right now in California. And don't forget, we talked about the political committee. What's going on in California? A lot of that same policies are coming here, right? And that's one reason why we're seeing with the properties going up. So we have a $68 billion deficit in California right now. What's the number one reason? How did that happen? They just had a $100 billion surplus 12 months ago. Economists, please tell me, how does that happen? How does that happen? There you go. There you have it. The tax base is leaving California like they've never seen before. Oh, I wonder why. They want to raise taxes even more. It's a $68 billion deficit. And not only is the tax base leaving, most of California's taxes come from where? The 1%. That's their treasury, right? The 1% and capital gains. Well, the capital gains isn't going to be what they thought, because why? Special taxes. Remember that mansion tax they put in LA? What a joke. It was supposed to raise, usually at this time of year, they're expecting $59 million in taxes. They've only raised $5 million so far. Why? Who wants to pay that tax? They just don't sell. And here's how they got duped. It's not just a mansion tax, okay, of a house that's 5 or 10 million. It's all real estate. So the apartment complexes, warehouses, guess what? Those sales have come to zilch. Well, guess what, dummies? You don't let people buy and sell, you can't collect taxes, right? Look at San Francisco. San Francisco just had a high rise. It was priced at $1.1 billion. Now it was just bought by a hedge fund for $350 million, okay? Los Angeles just had a high rise that was valued at $800 million 2 years ago, just sold for $150 million. What does that do? What does that do, Mr. Economist?
Messes with banks' statements.
Bank statements, and guess what? Tax receipts. They're not going to be able to collect taxes on an $800 million building anymore, and you have all these hedge funds and owners in San Francisco that are contesting the property tax because the values have dropped so much. So when you have one unit drop, you have one high-rise drop 150 million, guess what? All those other guys who were paying $1 billion in taxes on their property tax, where the value, what do? Boom, they're in. Hey, that's our new value, let's drop it. That's millions of dollars. And 70%, this is straight from the IRS numbers, 70% of all the people that leave California, what do you think their income is? Cameron, you should know this. $200,000. 70% of all the people leaving California now make over $200,000. And they pulled that from the IRS records. And lastly, California has 2 million vacant homes. And that right there would basically alleviate all their shortages. Why do they have so many vacant homes? Number one, they have a lot of China investors coming in. They keep them vacant. And the other problem is a lot of people just keep the houses vacant because they don't want to deal with all the rent control that's going on in there. And here's the last thing, we'll talk about this and we'll move on. Remember all that free rent? Remember all that free rent? The free rent that was going on? And the landlords are suffering and not collecting anything? Well, what do landlords do? What do landlords do? No, they pay taxes. Well, if you're not getting any money coming in, those apartment complexes, those fourplexes, I know a ton of people with fourplexes, a lot of them haven't got any income in the last 3 years. Well, guess what? California can't tax if you don't have income. And more importantly, when the income does start coming in, you're gonna have so many losses for the last 3 years, you're not gonna have to pay any tax for the next 3 years. So this is why you're seeing California utterly collapse. They're gonna have to make major cuts in what they're going on. And as this happens, you're gonna see more and more people leave California because what are they doing? Are they cutting taxes? Are they changing policies? Nope, making it even worse, which is great for us. And when people ask why the values are gonna go up, all you gotta do is just say California. But not only do you have California, you have two of the largest economies that are buying here in America, and Vegas is one of the top spots. Mr. Rowland.
Thank you, Steve.
Just speak at like 2x if you can.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got 37 seconds.
Yeah,
I'll be
go-
quick.
go for
Okay,
it.
cool.
If anyone needs to leave at 12:30, just go ahead and exit. That's not rude at all. Just go ahead and leave if you got to leave at 12:30 or now, whatever.
Awesome. Well, thanks to everyone for coming out today. I know it's the middle
We'll
of
have questions
this-
at the end.
Yep.
Go ahead, sorry.
I know it's the middle of a work day, and we could be doing anything, but
One
you're
more
here.
thing.
Awesome. I'll kill you.
Just kidding.
I'll murder you. So thank you very much. I've been assigned the task to talk about artificial intelligence, specifically in the real estate space. I'll stay in my lane because I am a real estate agent first and foremost, and I'll talk about how I and my team, we leverage technology and artificial intelligence. But before I do that, I remember last year, Steve actually spoke, I think it was the Trends meeting where you had talked about ChatGPT. Am I correct?
Yep.
ChatGPT, I mean, just show of hands. I'm curious for the room, kind of seeing the room. Who's at least played around with it, who understands it? Yeah, good portion. I love to see that. Okay. Fun fact, they did a poll on the US adult population, and 87% of people haven't used ChatGPT. They're oblivious to it. I found that fascinating because 87% is also the failure rate to your real estate agent. So I don't know if there's a correlation there. But my point is that we need to be aware of what's going on. And if you're part of the 87%, then jump on ChatGPT, play around with it, understand exactly what the future holds for us. Because this is maybe the first inning, maybe the second, but it's just at the very beginning. So understand what's happening, because if not, you're gonna be that agent that says, fax me. You're not gonna have a job here soon. I promise you that. And I don't wanna seem doom and gloom. It's just the reality. That's where we're headed. Elon Musk, who's probably a robot himself, he said the number one concern isn't climate change, anything, it is artificial intelligence. He said that is the number one danger that mankind is facing. So take that for what it's worth. But a couple other things, like in regards to like artificial intelligence, there's so many different things that we can discuss, things that you should be using. For example, another basic question, I know there's a lot of real estate agents in this room. Who has a CRM? Who uses a CRM? Half the room, okay. You probably want to get on that, just for starters. And I'm not going to tell anybody how to run their business, I promise you that, but you need to have some sort of hub for the artificial intelligence to go to work. I can list off a couple different tools, things that are happening right now in the real estate space, but honestly, a lot of it has to do with you having a CRM. For example, I mean, right now, I'm sure a lot of you are aware that artificial intelligence is actively texting us, right? Having full-fledged conversations, it's wild. And they're good, too. They're getting better, they're learning, they're becoming self-aware. But now, they're making phone calls. Have we seen this yet? And it's almost indistinguishable. It's pretty wild. It's very impressive, and it's getting better as well. There used to be like a lag where you could kind of tell, but now it's like crisp, and they are skilled. They're using the same scripts as Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry, the stuff that we preach and we practice and we try to drill into our agents, and then they don't use it. But this does. And they can call rapid fire. This AI, this bot isn't just calling one at a time like us. They're calling 200, 300, as many as you want. And they're having great conversations. And now they're doing warm transfer. So on my team, for example, we'll have a lead come in, artificial intelligence will go to work, start calling them. Someone says, hey, yeah, I'm interested in talking to a real estate agent. Boom, warm transfer to my agents. Agents are just standing on by waiting for a warm connection. Like, that's where we're at now, okay? And I work closely with a couple different companies. I'm not gonna name them, but one's really big, a super big one, actually, in the real estate space. It's more of a tech company. And if you're not fearful of what they're gonna do or what the vision of a lot of these real estate companies or tech companies are, again, I encourage you to get your head out of the sand, because they are trying to outsource all of our jobs. They really are. Like right now, they're already taking over as far as the ability to schedule showings. They own it. showing time, like they don't need you anymore for that. They still need us. They still need warm bodies to go and show the home and to establish relationship, build rapport with these people. But eventually, how far? You know, they can't send a robot out yet for that particular duty. But trust me, if they could, they would. So it's super important to note that we need to constantly be evolving ourselves, and we can be leveraging tech along the way. But if you're just doing the same stuff that you used to do, you're going to be absorbed. You're going to be replaced by artificial intelligence, and it's going to happen a lot sooner than you think, in like a couple of years. Again, when this stuff starts to pick up, like think about the internet, like just the growth that it's experienced in the past 25, 30 years from its inception to now, it's night and day. Like that's what artificial intelligence is. It's going to get crazy here in a couple of years, so you want to leverage it. You want to get good on the phone. As good as this artificial intelligence is at overcoming objection, it's still a robot, okay? There's still certain subtleties that a human being can pick up that a robot cannot, so you want to stay ahead of that. If you're one of those agents, and I tell this to my team all the time, that think you can text your way or email your way through real estate, you are going to be replaced. You actually already are, okay? Anybody can do that. You can do artificial intelligence, automations, in general. There's no value there. But a good agent is somebody who can obviously get somebody on the phone, establish trust, relationship with somebody, earn their business, obviously show a manner of professionalism and guide them through the process. So I just wanted to articulate that you should be aware of the changes that are happening in the artificial intelligence space or just the tech world in general, because they're coming. A couple other things, like this is high level, but if there's a team leads or brokers, you might find value in this. A couple different things as far as artificial intelligence is kind of interesting. They are now within our CRM, listening to every single phone call and transcribing it. So it's really neat for my agents. So my agents are driving, they're busy, just like a lot of us in this room are, and we're having a conversation with our leads. And, you know, just talking about Denver Broncos, their favorite team. Cool, fine. You know, get back to your office, you forgot to update the lead. Crap. 3 days later, you're laying in bed, freaking out like, oh shit, what'd I do with that lead? Okay, you can go into the search tab because now everything is transcribed. And you could type in Denver Broncos, and then boom, it'll find that lead for you, and then you can update it accordingly. Don't you think that will be valuable for people, let's just say, if you're looking for those that have poor credit, or if a grant program comes out for down payment assistance, you can just type in, you know, down payment assistance. If they even mentioned grants or anything like that, all of a sudden, boom, 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 mass email, send them this information on this new grant program. New stuff like that's coming out all the time. Also, it will tell me the length of time on average that my agents are able to keep the client on the phone from the initial objection. So if you're an agent that just says, oh, you're working with an agent, okay, thank you, have a great day. Like, I'll be able to see that and be like, okay, this person gets hung up on within 3 seconds of a first objection. Like, we need to coach this person up or they need to get out. Or if you're extending the conversation, asking better questions, because buyers are liars, they're gonna bullshit you a lot of the times. Good agents know that, okay? So there's just a lot of these new tech, a lot of these things that are coming out that you just need to be aware of. Understand that you just need to continue to evolve like anything else. I do think I'm pressed for time. So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I had to cover anyways. But yeah.
Jason took up too much time.
It's all good.
That was all me. You know me, I get on my soapbox and I just keep going and going and going and.
So,
all right, well, thank you, Mike.
Mary's kicking us out because we have another one, but real quickly, so we'll have Mike back to finish your AI. Bruce is going to be speaking at the next event, and probably Kirby too, if he can make it, about artificial intelligence. And what we said last year about artificial intelligence, ChatGPT was a joke. It's just the very beginning. Wait to see what happens. And they all said, all these tech people said, oh, it's not going to happen. It's 5 or 6 years. Well, what they said was going to happen in 5 or 6 years, Bruce is doing right now in real estate. He has avatars that are talking to people, having conversations, and people think they're talking to real people. So he's going to come back. It's amazing what he has going on right now. So we'll talk about that. And we have 5 minutes for questions, 3 minutes for questions.
Yeah, let's do a couple minutes of questions and 1 minute for questions. Noah's going to come around with the microphone. Remember to say your name and your company.
I veto that.
Stand up.
3 minutes.
Hi, Jennifer Belcastro with Simply Vegas. This kind of piggybacked off the last guest speaker. I thought maybe this would help our title reps and title companies. I actually was able to negotiate on a new build by using my own title company versus using theirs. So that's something that
Hold on,
Everyone. Before you leave, you have to sign out or you don't get credit. And policy 500-12, congratulations, you guys are all members, but you got to follow policy and sign out, okay?
All right, here the question is. So basically with the question.
I'm sorry, can we finish your question?
I'm just
Apologies.
recapping that basically with new builds, if you have a title company that you really want to work, you could put that in your negotiation. If you write an offer on a new build, that does happen. It happened to me. Thank you.
All right, a couple more questions. All right, right here, and here.
Can you repeat the part you said about China?
Sorry.
I'll wait for one
Hello,
of your TikTok
everybody. My
videos.
name is Freddie McCamera, your favorite realtor here in Las Vegas. So guess what? I'm actually teaching a class here February 22.
All right, no plugs right now. Yeah,
Okay.
no plugs right now.
Check out the LVR
Yeah.
website.
All right, we're gonna probably wrap it up then right now. Just to do some last minute housekeeping here for the good of the order. The Realtor of the Month nomination form and policy, the investment pledge card, the PSF raffle, all of those links are inside your
question.
packet.
What?
And then right before I
Please
turn
keep it
today's
down.
meeting, just know that the next meeting is going to be on Tuesday, April 9th. Steve already pretty much told you everything that's going to be happening there. And then just a quick message from our LVR president, Mary Perry.
It's over.
Guys, we have trends at 1 o'clock diversity, we just finished trends. Diversity at 1 o'clock in this room. It'll be the first ever meeting. If you join us, which is coming up right now, you will automatically be a member. And I want to thank everyone that came, the panel, the chair and the vice chair, Noah. And I just want to piggyback off of what Mike Rowland said. Pick up your phones. All the deals you get are not by text or email. It's by having conversations with the realtors. And thank you all for coming. I just want to remind everyone, Steve Hawks told me last year he would never step foot in this building again. And this is the second time in a row he's been the chair. Thank you, everyone.
Also, folks, if I could have you folks also take your trash and put your chair in because we're gonna have a meeting. And I need a couple people, if they wouldn't mind. Hello, Esme. Maybe 10, 20 people to help me put in the chairs and pick up the trash so we can leave the room clean, please.
All right, and with that being said, I'll adjourn today's meeting.